Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Yonit Arthur. I'm an audiologist and coach. You are on the Steady Coach. Welcome back for another success story. And this is with someone you're going to recognize because Ben is one of the favorites on my channel. I first interviewed him 2 years ago. He was here to share his story of recovery from MdDS, or Mal de Debarquement Syndrome. And because so many of you have been told horror stories about how these symptoms never actually go away, there's no such thing as lasting recovery, blah, 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 blah. I love re-interviewing people years later so that you can see that those stories are, again, nonsense. Ben is doing awesome, and he's here to tell you all about it in person, as well as to share more insights and advice from his recovery. I think you're going to delight in this particular interview. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Please let me know what you think of it in the comments. And of course, if you have questions for Ben, leave them in the comments as well. Please also like, share, subscribe to my channel, follow the podcast. These things help me reach more people. Now let's get to it. Interview with Ben, part 2. Ben, I said I was going to hit the record button as quickly as possible because we were already starting to get into it. Thank you so much. Welcome back. I'm so happy to see you. And I wanted to say before we even get started that I'm just so glad that you're willing to do this, because I've seen an influx of people recently with specifically the MdDS diagnosis who, went on various websites that shall not be named and read terrible things about how you can never recover and there's no such thing as full recovery or whatever. And you're living proof 2 years later that that's just utter nonsense. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. And like I told you and to anyone who's watching, 2 years ago when I had come on originally, I discussed that of the times I spent on the internet, especially on those web pages that were understandably a lot of people in pain and a lot of people that didn't really see a way out because of the complexity of dealing with these vestibular issues. I think it's valid because that's what it feels like in the system, but that only increased my sensitivity and my awareness of these uncomfortable sensations, especially around, it got to the point of like depersonalization is like the closest thing I can compare the severity of the vestibular systems at their worst. But when I would go on those pages or that internet and that would, instead of strengthening the belief that there's a possibility in a world in which that I'm going to get better and I'm going to beat this, it was pushing me further in strengthening the belief that I'm not safe, this is going to last. And those thoughts really ate at me for a long time. So I first wanted to just say I understand why one would go down that path. I did myself, but it's not healthy as we go towards a healing path with this stuff, because it just strengthens the belief that it's not possible to get better. And I haven't had a single vertigo symptom in 2 years, not one.
Yes. Sorry. She's getting excited. Okay. And narrating herself in third person. That's how you really know. Yeah. Okay. All right. So maybe we just kind of pick up at where we left off. So we left off about 2 years ago. You were doing great. You were already doing great. What updates do you have for us about what life has been like since then? Maybe on the sensation front and then other fronts. I mean, you had talked about anxiety and OCD and sources of stress in your life. So we want to know what's been up for the last 2 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I made that video, I had real short hair. And at the time I was living in the mountains in Colorado, and there was a river that would flow by, and there was a lot of time for reflection there. Now, since then, I was able to finish my master's program. I remember not telling anyone what I was going through and watching the instructor and the board go like this, and having my hoodie on. But I kept showing up, and when I look back, oh my God, that was so hard to do. But I kept showing up, and then around the time I made that video, I was doing a ton better. The vestibular symptoms, went from feeling like a 10 to a 2. I could kind of get back into like a workout routine. I know when we talked about, like, for me, like farmers carries and having that weight and walking in a straight line, but feeling strong, and like that was a powerful thing for me, was getting back to exercise, even if at first it looked a lot different than what I was used to. It was extremely valuable. So I continued with the exercise. I didn't try to push myself too much, but I showed up. I went to the grocery store. I know in the last video I talked about like walking around there like it was a Super Bowl for me to just go around there and overcome the lights and the feeling of my feet sinking beneath the floor. So I continued to get better and better since that video. Like I said, I finished the master's program in May. It was 3 years, and now I have a licensed professional counselor candidate position in the state of Colorado, where I'm just starting to take on private clients with a supervisor. Again, things that sitting in the lowest of lows in my bedroom to being able to go to sporting events and do all these things. And I don't even think about it anymore, in the same way in which I'll never forget how difficult and how painful the experience was, especially to feel isolated and in the dark, until I came across this channel and was able to relate to it. So thank you, and to anyone who spoke before me. But yeah, when I don't think about it in the sense of when I go somewhere that used to be an environment that would trigger me, I just go. And in these 2 years, in terms of sensation, there's been moments like anyone, not just people, and this is very important for me to say, not just individuals dealing with vestibular issues, triple PD, MdDS, whatever it may be. Often you can stand up from the couch, and for a second you feel dizzy, or and everyone to an extent has experienced these sensations. But because the severity of what we went through, our system's so on guard, trying to protect us and sense danger in the external environment, that I saw little moments where I could have kind of got stuck with that sensation, and then my mind could have followed with story of, oh, it's back. Oh, like, yeah, I'm okay now, but it's going to get worse. But over time, it was familiar. So the sensation was familiar because I got closer to it by going to the grocery store. If I couldn't do 30 push-ups, doing 2, by walking around the pond or whatever it may be, I got closer to the greatest fear, which was the sensation, and that it wasn't going to go away. And that allowed me, actually, rather than all the time I spent prior to making the video with you, in fear and in avoidance, understandably, it was extremely uncomfortable. I got closer. So then when these little moments would show up, I was like, this is okay. I recognize this. This is familiar. And then in a few minutes, I was back to normal. And then for the rest of the day, I wouldn't think about it. And this was all I thought about for well over 15 months. It was like the only thing I thought about was how terrible this felt, all these sensations, to them reappearing for a moment. Not because they're coming back because there's something wrong with me, but because my blood pressure or something, I got up off the couch or this happens, I'm okay. And that knowing I'm okay allowed the system to quickly recalibrate back to what we would say is optimal functioning of our balance system.
That's absolutely right. Thank you for pointing that out too. It's exactly what you just said. Honestly, I could not have said it better. I'm just going to highlight it by repeating it because it's worth hearing a second time. Dizziness and other vestibular type sensations are completely normal, and your radar is just particularly sensitive when you've gone through chronic symptoms that were really terrifying and very high level. So for a while after that, your radar is just going to be a little bit too finely tuned, and you're going to maybe jump in response to something that's actually quite normal that a lot of people might feel or that you've probably experienced before. And the key is, just like you said, if you've befriended that sensation already, if you've befriended the fear already, and the fear and the sensations just don't scare you anymore, you will be able to shrug it off and let your system do what it does naturally, which is desensitize in time.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing too. When I'm talking about some of these principles, of course, now looking back 2 years and reflecting, this was a practice of everydayness, of really showing up to each moment. And it wasn't to necessarily get rid of the fear, but despite of the fear, I'm gonna show up for myself, and I'm gonna reopen myself to the world and to the possibilities that there's a life without, feeling this poorly. And there was. And I don't think anyone watching is any different than me, or I did something, better, or this, or I often, when I've spoken to people or they've seen the video, it's often, I see very similar patterns between, even if the symptoms themselves, both in severity or just how they appear, are different, often the reaction and some of the questions I've been asked around were the same questions that I pondered, which was seeing how the symptoms would be at one level or at one place, and then they would move. I mean, it wasn't just vertigo for me. I mean, I would get acid reflux just from the nervousness every time I would eat. I had a right-sided headache that I couldn't get rid of with anything, no medication, anything. I'm happy to say that no longer being stabbed in the right side of the temple constantly.
Excellent.
But yeah, the biggest thing for me is just making it clear that, again, this is a practice in developing a tolerance to not getting back to this in one night. There, patience and belief and possibility and in yourself are going to be the biggest factors. And it's not necessarily about what often the question is, what did I do wrong? I was doing really good, and then this reappeared. It isn't. I would always respond with, well, how much time now went between this current sensation, or what many like to call a relapse. That's what I used to call it in my mind, versus when you look back and then you realize, instead of every 5 seconds experiencing this, you went several days, or you went a week, and then this shows up, and then all that progress, because your system is a mechanism of protection. It's going to want to go back to that danger zone, just like the online forums, a danger zone, if you will. That's natural. But can you, over time, develop a tolerance and an ability to, instead of walking back, to reflect and realize and develop a sense of confidence that you are getting better? It just might not be as linear as you'd like. No one wants to go through this. No one deserves to go through this. There's no right and wrong way to go through this. But I truly believe that as you develop the tolerance, both in sensation and in your thought patterns, you go from, how would I say it, but basically getting into negative self-talk and attaching to these negative sensations to just allowing them to pass. And they do pass, but you must allow them the space without the judgment and expectation. And that's my biggest takeaway, if anything, when I respond to someone, is in these relapses, they often forget what it looked like a month ago or 6 months ago versus, because when it comes back and you got a little bit less used to the sensation, of course, it's going to be
worse.
more, but you're not worse, and this is not linear, but you're still getting better.
That's right. So what I heard you say, don't believe your thoughts. your brain's going to be like, no, it's all back to square one. That's just not true. It's just not true. It's just a response to feeling uncomfortable. And I'm curious to hear how you would answer this. I think you and I are on exactly the same page, but I'm curious to know your wording when someone says, but I know the key to getting better is not being afraid anymore, and I can't stop being afraid. I'm terrified all the time, and I'm trying to calm myself down and breathe and relax, and it's just not working. I'm still terrified. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I the biggest thing that popped out to me there was at the end, it's not working, and there was clearly a solidified belief in that no matter what I do, no matter what I try, and I've tried, this isn't going to get better. And often people try many different things. You go to 14 specialists before you know what it is per se, or before you come across a video. So I saw a solidified belief that no matter what I do, I can't get out of this. And I would respond in which it's not to get rid of the fear again, but to show up despite of the fear. And fear is going to show up in our life in so many different ways. And these last 2 years, I would say in some ways, it showed up more, but in different ways. It's just the way in which I respond to it now, and the resiliency that I've gained from the vestibular journey. The OCD that I discussed as a child, the way before I ever dealt with this, I remember if I would deal with it would almost turn to like a hypersensation, or I'm thinking I'm sick, like a hypochondria almost. And now I like laugh to my mom. I'm like, I could be like it's something could be severe, and I would probably be like, you know what, I'm okay, I'm gonna walk it off. And like the me before this experience, Google, I should have died a million times according to the information that I was interacting with. So yeah, that's a really tough thing to respond to. But I think the biggest thing is changing from a solidified belief to that another outcome is possible. And not thinking that you're going to be able to live a life without fear now when you're facing this battle or after. It's gonna show up in many ways.
You can still get better. And you can still get better. And Ben, it's not like you went into those grocery stores feeling like, oh, yay, everything's going to be great. I'm going to have a new corrective experience. You went in terrified. You went in expecting terror and being okay with terror. Bring it along with me. That's the kind of attitude that you had. And that's, although not everyone is going to maybe feel that gung-ho, the way that I just described, that's what we're asking. We're asking you to say, fear is maybe going to show up, and that's okay. By facing it, you're doing what we're asking you to do. It's not, you're not trying to eliminate fear.
Absolutely. And I really like the way in which you use the word maybe, because that's allowing yourself to be in situations without complete certainty. And that is the biggest key to this puzzle is, can you remain neutral to the sensation, in the sense that labeling the story, because over time the story again gets solidified more and more and more that I'm broken. I mean, I go into those grocery stores and having these sensations, I couldn't really look people in the eyes at all. So the connection there, in terms of like on a just being like humanized, that experience in itself was so isolating, because when the vestibular system was off, my ability to connect with the 3D material world around me became alienated. I became depersonalized to it. So no, I was going in this grocery store because I had tried every which way to avoid it, to go around it, to sink deeper and deeper into the despair that it was creating within me. To I have no other choice, because I've already felt like I was on the brink of dying because of the way my system responded to this, and my blood pressure went from perfect to insane, that I was like, well, there's been so many times where it felt like this was just going to take me out, then let it. And actually what happened is, in that store, in those situations, with the cart and all the things to look at, I began to just practice looking at like one individual label or one thing in the store. I didn't go in there with a million things, but like I had a mission to get a few things, because I wasn't cooking anymore. I wasn't like, I remember I would get up and like I wouldn't want to cook or like do anything, and then just like going in there and feeling successful that I got what I needed, and then going home and showing that self-care to cook a meal or to do something despite of what I was feeling. It reinvigorated a sense of humanizing myself, a belief in myself, and like, yeah, just I felt like a person again. But it was not without fear. And I want to be clear that fear will find ways to, just like the sensations change, the way that the fear and the self-talk and the questioning will surface in so many different ways. It's truly a very elusive experience, because right when you think you're better, something arises and you can cling to that, and then feel like you're going backwards. But the biggest thing I've learned is to just neutrality, and showing up despite of it was the biggest tool in getting better. It had nothing to do with right or wrong, this or that. It was simply, it is what it is. I've been at this too long now. I've tried everything else with the going down this path of trying to find someone who has had the exact same experience as me, because I felt so alone. And then I would find someone who was having a really bad experience like me, and then I would feel more alone, and then it would have this cumulative effect. And then I kind of just took the momentum, started going in the opposite direction over time, and that momentum would carry me through the fear, and that belief over time I would be able to overcome the thoughts that said, let's just stay home today. This world is not safe. I'm not safe. I'm not okay. Yeah, I could get better for a little bit, but I've read all these stories where it's going to come back. So what's even the point? Like, what's the point? And the point was that I later learned was that this changed my life entirely in terms of mental health struggles previously, because I'm able to show up to whatever comes up with a sense of neutrality and with a balance and a balance in life I never had before. It's like the saying, you smell the flowers after this experience. It's not like just one moment I was like, this is it, it's over, I'm healed. It was just, it would go as I was less sensitive to the sensations and stopped following some of these negative kind of following the negative thoughts. It would just go deeper and deeper and deeper into the background, like it was background noise. Instead of it was speaking in my ear loudly, it would just go backward. And then before I knew it, I just kind of forgot, and I just kind of was in that flow state of life. And then when you're in that flow state and you're showing up for yourself, I go to, last spring, and I wasn't avoiding it. I just hadn't been to a sporting event. And then I go to like this sold out football game, and it's in Philadelphia. So they're loud. It's probably the craziest place you can go for a game. And the entire time I didn't even think once of like, well, what if I get dizzy, or what if this? And that was an extreme situation of being around tons of people in a very loud environment. But you'll start to see it dissipate further and further and further. And that's when you know that you're beginning to, well, that you're overcoming this is when it becomes background noise instead of screaming in your ear.
That's right. I'm so glad you are talking about this, because this is a question I get from a lot of people who get to this arbitrary point that sometimes people call like 80, 90%. I never really know exactly what that means, but where basically they're living their lives relatively without limitation, but they're still uncomfortable some of the time, or even in the backdrop all the time. And then they're like, okay, so like, what do I need to do next? Do I need to do more emotional work? Do I need to this, and this? What does it look like? It's almost like people are expecting to be able to say the date on April 7th, 2025. That's the day my symptoms stopped. And it's exactly the opposite. It's when you let go. Again, once you've reached a certain critical mass, obviously, if you sit around just not doing anything, it's probably not going to do any, like, go away. But once you get to the point where you were at, where you're like, you know what, like, it's at a 2 now, I'm living my life, I'm going to just let it do its thing. When you get to that point and you start to live your life well, eventually the signal starts to come down on its own. It starts to fade into the background. You will forget about it for longer and longer periods of time. You'll forget to check on it. And then one day you'll kind of be like, oh yeah, I don't even remember the last time I felt that. Mm-hmm. That's how it looks. Exactly. It's incredibly not dramatic. It's incredibly not the way people think healing looks. They think it's like some magnificent, like, fireworks moment. I'm healed. It's like paint drying. I've said that many times. We're just like, oh, look at that. The paint's dry. I forgot to look at it. That's how it looks.
That's the best way to describe it. And my expectations for a long time, again, were this, like, there was going to be this moment of just everything would go away. And it was like this, just like all at this one moment, everything subsides. And looking back, I can't tell you when, if, how, what I was thinking, what date I got better. That wasn't the case at all. It was literally just the more, again, that I would show up despite what I was feeling, the further and further and further and further the sensitivity and the symptoms themselves would move into the rear view. And then as you get some momentum, it's like, at first you're looking in the rear view and the shadows of this really traumatic experience that many of us have gone through is like right there in the rear view. But as you get momentum, and as that car starts going, the further and further it's in the rear view, and then you're focused on something else, whether hopefully something positive or whatever it may be. Your mind is always going to be working, going, moving somewhere. But when in relation to the vestibular symptoms and whatnot, there's not going to be a date and time where this goes away. It's it's a very bland,
boring.
Ribbons and balloons don't rain down. Again, like you said, it's quite the opposite. And I appreciate that now, but of course at the time, because what was I looking for at the core? Again, understandably, which I always want to say, because again, I want to really humanize this experience, and the pace at which you go as you develop a tolerance and as you change the way in which you see yourself in the situation takes time. But if you're looking for a time and a date, you can be sure that that's the system looking for complete certainty. And as long as you're in that complete certainty expectation or mindset, as hard as it is to get out of it, true healing is not possible, because we all have stuff. We might wake up with some back pain, get off the couch, things are going to show up still now. What we're working to overcome in relationship to the vestibular stuff, we need to be able to differentiate when that's reappearing, and how to work with that, rather than anytime anything's wrong in my life now, I'm going to go back because this familiar, although terrible and traumatic experience is familiar now. Then I have a certainty of why I'm not getting better or why this is hard, all these things, when in reality, it's embracing the uncertainty and having no time or expectation when it appears. I like to say it's when you least expect it, the healing will come. And again, just like the other stuff, this is a practice in moment-to-moment awareness without clinging and without jumping to conclusions. That doesn't mean your mind might not jump to conclusions, but you have the power to, instead of following those thoughts, to reset, recalibrate, right. Just like the system itself is trying to recalibrate and get out of the danger signal and the vestibular malfunctioning, if you want to look at it that way. Take that same attitude and bring it to your thoughts, because I still get intrusive thoughts. I had OCD since I was young. I don't have any vertigo. I don't have headaches. There's been moments where I felt off balance for a second, or lightheaded, and it has nothing to do with me getting worse. It's just actually me getting better and being able to cope and handle these situations without going backwards.
That's right. Oh, okay. I have so many things I want to ask. I'm going to follow one thread and we'll see if I remember to come back for the other ones. One thing you just alluded to was that this has changed your relationship with yourself too. So we've spoken a lot. I mean, we focused thus far in our conversation on symptoms and how you related to symptoms. But what I'm hearing is that under the hood, the way you related to symptoms was also changing more fundamentally how you relate to life and to yourself in general. So I'm wondering if you can speak more directly to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in my own case, always having trouble when I was young around uncertainty. I mean, that's kind of at the core of when we begin to experience obsessive or intrusive thoughts. That's kind of the nature of it. So in my experience, as I worked with these symptoms and I showed, despite my body really feeling unsafe, I showed it grace. I befriended it in the same way I befriended all aspects, I felt like, of myself. The good, the bad, the things that I needed to work on. They were all part of a system of so many things. I'm not just this one thing. I'm not just going to identify with I have MdDS or I have OCD or something's wrong with me. But I began to actually see my experience and my day-to-day experience as as outside of the story that I had projected on my life for so long. The vestibular journey was just like all the times that I worried about my health previously or was struggling with negative self-talk or confidence or other things. It just intensified it to the point where I had nothing to do but leaning closer to it. And by leaning in closer to these sensations, I felt like I leaned in closer to that child, to that younger self that wouldn't have been able to handle this situation in the same way, to give themselves grace, to give their body that's sending mixed signals because it's trying to help them and protect them, but it's starting to get really old and really scary. It was in the same way I showed grace to the physical symptoms. I began to show grace to myself, despite what might come up mentally, or those old stories began to become background noise, as did the vestibular symptoms. So this overlapping matrix, or this puzzle of psychological distress linking with physical distress and where that can take you, versus replacing the story of it's not possible to recover, of that I'm broken, and also replacing the story of I'm a negative person, or I'm this way, or I will never get rid of these negative thoughts. They co-aligned.
Absolutely.
For the bad and the good. I just kind of chose a new path, and the path was uncertain and scary. But but it's given me another chance at life and of showing up. To look you in the eyes now, like on the screen especially, because that was even harder than in person, or to like go to the store and like clearly look someone in the eye when you're checking out. It's like still brings me like a physical sensation of gratitude. And again, I think the gratitude now, and that was the hardest thing to get to, especially it was a lot of why me, during this experience. But yeah, so I don't forget what I went through, and I don't forget how difficult it was. More so, I just use it as a testament to my ability to overcome and to strengthen my belief in self rather than to follow that path of limiting myself, because you're going to find more and more limitations the further and further you go with the fear response. Life will get smaller and smaller and smaller till it's so small that you have no choice but to show up at the store or to go to an uncomfortable environment or to do something and to just feel it fully. And to feel it fully, to befriend it. It might not be befriending it like your best friend in the world, but over time, the closer you get to it, the closer you are to solving the puzzle. And yeah.
You're talking about resilience. That's resilience right there. And not just, I was thinking post-traumatic growth. That's another word I would describe, but this is more fundamental than that. You show yourself who you really are when you face something like this. You have the opportunity to show yourself what you're really made of. And I think people kind of get stuck when they totally disintegrate because they're going through symptoms like these. They start judging themselves and thinking, oh, this actually shows that I'm broken. But a layer beneath that, you are not broken. You are absolutely not broken. And you need to show yourself that that's true. And what you're describing in facing sensations and fear that are so overwhelming, what is going to scare you after that? Just what? What could possibly scare you after that?
100%. You let all the ghosts out of the closet.
Exactly.
Long before you were dealing with this, from childhood, whatever it may be, we all go through traumatic experiences, and they'll definitely rear their head during this journey in particular. But again, it's like you said, it's like it's really like almost like a cleansing experience that goes so far beyond, even though your whole world seems like it's revolving around, do I have triple PD? Is it MdDS? Is it this? Just to getting to a point that you don't even care what it is. You know, whatever it is, that it's not gonna be the reason why you didn't do this or you didn't show up. And the more you show up and the bigger your world gets, as good things start to happen, you begin to identify with those. But as long as you're limiting yourself to the darkness, more dark things will arise. It's just a nature, because the belief is the secret to all of this. And the belief can only be strengthened. Well, the best way to strengthen it is to be able to go out in this world and do something despite of it. And by doing that, the system, in my experience, is like, wait a second, we've been telling you something's extremely wrong, you're in danger, like, what's going on here? And you just change like a pathway, like a possibility, both neurologically and just like the sensation itself by going here or doing this. It's like a somatic experience that differs from the habitual experience you've got into of shutting yourself down and staying on the couch.
That's
and
right.
Avoiding.
That's right. And it counts even if it doesn't feel good. I'm putting out a video this weekend, I think, where that's one of the things I talk about. People have this mistaken belief that progress like looks nice. and like that it feels okay. Like, oh, well, I'm going to do the grocery store, and on day 5, it's going to feel better. It on that kind of time span, it really doesn't. It doesn't necessarily get better on that time span. It's a slower, more gradual process for many people, but that's where the belief comes in, where you have, and this is something you spoke about so beautifully in the first conversation we had. You knew you were doing the right thing, and you just kept going, and eventually it paid off. But in the process of doing that, you were already getting something good out of it. And this is what I'm constantly trying to emphasize. This is why the mindset is so important. You're not going to necessarily see progress in terms of symptoms right away, but you're going to see progress in terms of knowing what you're made of right away.
Yeah. And that is, again, when I alluded to like fitness for me played a big role in this. And again, I remember all the times I left the gym like really angry and like upset because I just, things started feeling more off than they had when I had walked in, and then like feeling like, oh, like a failure. Like it was like all this self-talk of like, I'm weak, both like in body, mind, and spirit. There was just like a real, I was in a real sad and dark place. And then I talked about this momentum thing. And then it's like when you're carrying those weights, it's not even about like the weights themselves. For me, it was about like that physical feeling of being strong again. Also created a feeling of strength within. And it was like, so now I made an LLC for like a counseling business, and I called it's Mind Body Balance.
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to talk about this more. Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, that's what I'm alluding to, that you'll notice that as you show up for yourself physically, it's going to improve your mental outcomes. And as you begin to train yourself psychologically to work with these uncomfortable thoughts, it's also going to allow you to do more physically, to go on that walk, to do that farmer's carry around the gym. And at first it might be less pounds than you used to lift. It's not about that. Often we want to compare ourselves, and I talked about this in the last video, to getting back to who we were. Unrecognizable for me, even 2 years ago doing this video, of what I was thinking. I know it's the same. I have the same outlook in terms of principles, but everything else that's ensued since then, it's unexplainable. So I don't really have words for it, but looking back of wanting to get back to like just feeling how I was before, there were so many ways in which I wasn't fully showing up for myself before that I am now, and I wouldn't be if I didn't have this experience. Doesn't mean I wish it on anyone. Don't wish it on I don't have any enemies, I hope. I don't wish it on anyone. But if you're going through it, you got to take it from a burden and turn it into a blessing. And then it becomes about more than just not feeling dizzy or not experiencing the sensations. It becomes every facet of your life is affected in a positive way by, despite feeling poorly, showing up positively for yourself. And then you can start to show up for other people as you start to feel better. And that really changes the game, because that connection piece, first you got to realign and connect with yourself. And then once that safety is established, you can go out to the world and establish it with others. And the world doesn't always feel safe either, but you can be that light, and you used to be that person on the couch. So that's, yeah.
I have nothing to add. That was beautiful. Oh, beautifully stated. Okay, but this does raise this question. So I'm just hoping that you're going to tell me that, of course, you're going to be working as a counselor. Is this going to be an area of specialty for you, working with people who have physical symptoms?
I do hope so, and that's the plan. I just made the LLC last week, so the timing
perfect
is great. But yeah, so I called it Mind Body Balance Counseling LLC, and that was a little bit of a shout out to all of you guys and stuff. I think for everyone, the way in which counseling and psychology is kind of moving in this direction of understanding the ways in which the mind and body split is not helpful, and we see much better outcomes when we're working in a model that accept the ways in which they're up living in the same ecosystem, and we
Absolutely.
need to provide for them both. So that name was like, just for me, like it meant a lot, but it was also, and I'm just getting going. I have a supervisor for the next 2 years, so I'm in the candidacy stage. But yeah, absolutely on the biography here in the state of Colorado, working with chronic pain and medically unexplained phenomena from a psychological perspective.
I'm so happy. I'm about to cry. I'm so happy. Oh, Ben, we need you. I'm so happy. Oh my gosh. This is fantastic news. Boy, are you in for it?
I remember that the first time I saw your video, and I don't think I recall this the day I made it, is that I got on my bike and like after watching that video, I just got on a bike and I just went around a little bit around the town, and it was like I was not going to get on that bike that day. I was going to be in the basement. I didn't even really want to watch TV or read because I noticed, like, especially in the first half of my experience with these vestibular challenges, the vision changes. You would have thought that you went to the eye doctor and something physical, something that you could scan or would show up, because it was very defined, the visual changes I was having. And these are visual changes that, like, now I don't have at all. So anyways, but I saw that video and I got on that bike, and that video with you and Megan was like, okay, I didn't stay in the basement that day. And then everything that kind of unfolded after that was going between the I can't do this and I'm not going to get better, and sitting in the yard Googling, to the belief, to creating healthier habits. It was like this tug of war. It was really like a tug of war between fear and faith, if you will, faith in oneself, faith in your ability to overcome this. And in the end, I just nurtured the soil more of the positive end that had possibilities. And for a long time, I was watering, all the things that I wasn't, and all the things I was going to miss out on, and everything that was wrong. And that changed how my judgment towards other people. I like, in terms of just, we often can get in places of judgment, and that blocks us off from fully experiencing many things in life. And I think as I lost the judgment of my symptoms, then I lost the judgment of myself prior, and was able to kind of reclaim some narratives from youth to less judgment on people and the world. And when you're in a place of less judgment, you just feel so much freer to experience from that same neutral point of view, rather than the labels of this is bad, this is good, this is the date I get better. All the labels, they're just all tricky ways in which uncertainty and the fears around that are trying to show up to protect you physiologically, or whatever you want to say, but actually they're limiting you, because even though you think you're going to die, or you think things are going to go extremely bad, it's been 2 years. I'm still here, a little more hair, but I'm still here. So hopefully you believe me.
Yeah. Well, no better evidence than seeing the evidence right before you. I mean, that's why these interviews are so important, and why I persist, and we'll just keep doing them. I have a new goal. Basically, there just being so many of them that anytime anyone says, "Oh, I think you can't recover," I'm just going to be like, and just send them to the playlist, and they're just going to be hundreds of them, and then it's just indisputable. So I'm so curious. because, Ben, as part of my work, I end up referring a lot of people to counselors. And I've noticed, how do I put this? First of all, there's, of course, a divide in terms of, or a range, shall we say, of skill. So some more skilled, some less skilled. But also, there seem to be some counselors who really don't understand how to work with mind-body disorders or are very cognitively focused. And I know that's some of that's just training. So I'm wondering, how did this experience change your education? Did you find you had to, I mean, maybe your school was much more integrative to begin with, but did you find that it made you think differently about what you were learning in your master's program?
Yeah. So, of course, and prior to it all beginning, it began right when I moved out here to Colorado, but I went to a non-traditional university that had incorporated like Buddhist philosophy, because prior I was always looking for ways in which to manage other uncomfortable aspects of my life, both dealing with chronic pain from a head injury and then more just like stress, anxiety, things like that. So prior to all this, I was really interested in meditation and philosophy. I went to a traditional university, the University of Iowa. I had a great experience there. I would imagine that trajectory, yeah, it would have been going somewhere that had meditation and looked at some, I guess you could call it spiritual, transpersonal phenomena, things like this. And in itself, this is a spiritual experience to go through the vestibular journey. But I will say, I was already interested in these things. They actually just became way harder because time by myself and meditating and all these things became harder and harder because of the vestibular challenges were making me more and more fearful. But at the same time, I was working with a curriculum that was practicing a lot of the things that are being preached on here, that are all the things that I utilize to now have, now to live I don't want to say a normal life, but hopefully it's more extraordinary than it was, we'll say. But anyways, yeah, I would definitely say that my experience, even if I went through the curriculum I did, which was at Naropa University, so it is more of it's completely a body-mind based program. I still think it would be pretty difficult to express and understand this if you hadn't worked with enough people and seen enough patterns and sequences of what we're kind of dealing with here. So if you show up too cognitively as a counselor, I think with these particular issues, you're kind of showing up as like a mirror of regulation. That like if you could do anything when someone's coming in dealing with these mind-body sensations, the trust, and the trust is going to be harder to develop because of the lack of feeling safe. But as the trust develops and you could become a mirror for regulation, even if you know nothing about, you have no idea the sensations the client's feeling, like you've never felt them physically. If you can show up and be regulated, I think that's the first step. But then if you can go even deeper, and for someone like me that has an understanding and was gaslit because of previous challenges or experiences or all these things, I think my hope is that I could go to a deeper layer. So I see the work as being very challenging for a counselor to work with a lot of this mind-body stuff. You don't have to necessarily experience it, but you have to be around it enough to begin to recognize again, like the ways in which it shows up. And I think like for someone like you that was the first person to, like when I felt like I didn't have a voice, you became a mirror for regulation and for possibilities and for all these things. So if someone's showing up to a counselor and it's very cognitive based
or management focused,
that's actually working, and they likely, if they got into that profession, have very good intentions, but for the sake of what we're dealing with here, that again could be going to back in a dangerous neighborhood, because there's a level of disassociating too that's necessary in this journey, because a lot of us become so cerebral and so effective at scanning and noticing and all these things, that if I'm coming in, the way in which meditation is going to look,
it's going to be different.
It's going to be different.
Yes,
so
it is.
You could be the most cognitive, or you could be trained in somatic experiencing. And I think if you don't fully understand the principles, I think it could still be quite challenging to not do harm by accident. Yeah,
100%. This may sound like a weird thing, but you sort of need the capacity as a counselor to simulate what the other person is going through so that you can thread that needle. So for some people, regulation or feeling safe does mean maybe easing sort of toward the cognitive end of things. And for other people, it may be easing toward the somatic end of things. But ultimately, you really need to be able to read them. And if you haven't had the experience yourself, it can be very difficult to read someone well enough to know what to apply next, how to move them forward. So thank you for weighing in on that. I know I didn't prepare you with any questions at all. So I've just been asking you all sorts of random questions. I really appreciate you answering that off the cuff.
No, I greatly appreciate it. I'd say one thing is that the times I have had a phone call, and it came from that first video I did. And at the times I did have time, I would do my best to answer some phone calls, here, there, emails. But it was amazing how, without seeing, the person on the other line's face or all these things, very similar questions, almost exactly to the same questions I was asking myself would appear. And then I was able to, again, to mirror them on like a deeper level. And I think this is such complicated phenomena that I feel lucky to have the chance, hopefully, to be able to work with people going through this and come from a place of knowing, because I do think it'll increase the likelihood of a better outcome. Yeah. And that's all we want for everyone that's watching this, and is a good outcome. And it's just quite understandable how it would be really hard to, as a counselor, as a psychologist, whatever you're doing, if you're working with someone that's going through this, I think on a level of like physical sensation, because of the ways in which it moves, shifts, and changes, it would be very easy to just associate this with a anxiety disorder or a depersonalization, and it's a whole lot of things. So I would. That's all I could say on that. Really, it's very complicated to show up as another person for someone going through this.
Absolutely. Okay, I have to ask this before we go, because I think this will be very important for some people to hear. I would love to hear a little bit more about what this meant to you spiritually, if you're willing to share.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, at its worst, I was actually home in Illinois, and I never was like this before. I became to have suicidal thoughts. It was getting to that point, and I like fell to my knees in front of my mother, and I'm 22, 23 years old. So there's shame there. Like there's a lot, like I'm at the house the whole summer. So just right there in itself was really starting to affect my confidence and my belief that I'm going to be able to finish this program. And how can I become an effective or worthy person to get in a profession of helping others if I can't help myself? These were exactly and from that experience and that, like, recounting how low I got to now sitting here, about to, go work out and starting this practice and finishing the master's program. Spiritually, what it did to me is it completely changed the way in which I see myself. I show myself grace in so many situations. That doesn't mean that I don't say we're going to do this, and like I don't. There has to be a level of intensity, just to, that there just has to be in this journey. But spiritually, I feel like I'm more aware of my own needs, others' needs. I have a stronger faith in myself and and I have a stronger faith in other people, and I see the good. It just changed the way in which I see the world as a whole, despite all the things that go on. I tend to work with the light, and I tend to find myself being in these situations that are ones that are hopeful and ones that that make me feel connected. And I had many times in my life where I was not connecting with my environment or other people. So the spiritual gift that I was given by this is from the lowest of lows. A flower can sprout once you begin to water it. And I think if you start showing yourself that love and you start in some ways challenging yourself, but challenging yourself at a pace that, and when I say challenging yourself, it just means showing up despite of how you're feeling with a belief in yourself. And when you begin to believe in yourself and you begin to put this further and further in your rear view, then you begin to not just believe in yourself, but believe in other people. And that gives you more faith in the world as a whole. So when you turn on the news or you do this and these things come up, I think that it's able to give me a sense of, despite all this that's going on or this darkness or what I'm feeling, that I'm going to choose today to be of the light, to make someone smile, to not be judgmental. It's a practice in humility, a practice in grace and for yourself, for others, and it's a practice in loving. Yeah, like at its core, to overcome this, you need to get that love back for yourself, to see a possibility in which you can start, you can love another, or you can love this activity. A lot of times people talk about, I once did this and I loved it, this sport or this thing. You can, and you will. And it will actually feel even better, or feel different than it did before. So the thing I'll say to close it out is that forget the time and the date or how you want to feel or how you think you felt before. And you will see that 2 years down the road, you'll be looking at yourself in the mirror or doing this and that. And you just won't believe how far you can come with a little bit of positive self-talk and a whole lot of resilience. And everyone's capable of it. And I think I'm just one example of many people that have chosen, in the face of fear, of not being understood, of feeling lost, to strap up their boots and get back out there. And that's spiritual in itself, just to show up. So,
amen to that. You were talking about this in using different terms, but tell me if this makes sense. So you start by loving yourself and loving even those aspects of yourself, like your own fear that you have found to be intolerable or very uncomfortable at times. And from there, surprisingly, the love starts to grow. It starts to extend to all aspects of yourself, to to people around you to starting to see the world as actually fundamentally a loving place. And that's what I heard you say. Tell me if I captured it.
Yeah, and it was even a little hard for me to capture it, but yeah, that's exactly right. Basically, again, when you water the seeds, I'm using these analogies for yourself and all that though. But when you've been through this and that feeling of being gaslit, and it was no one's intention to do that. It's again, it's just a phenomenon so strange to all the ways in which this could have had a really negative outcome, and to be of the light is that you don't want anyone else. They don't have to be going through this to not want someone else to be in a state of pain. And I know long before this, I never wished anything like that, but I think I've been able to get closer in relationship and in community in seeing other people and picking them up where maybe before it could have went unnoticed, or I was so in my world of am I going to get better, or is there something wrong, that I couldn't even see anyone else.
Sure.
So it's a beautiful thing to help another person when you can be of assistance.
That's right.
But in this journey, that first you have to overcome your mind and the sensation, and then you can get out there in the world. So yeah, I challenge everyone that is going through this is to try to make yourself a good neighbor. And you might notice the flowers more, or when I go outside now, it's just I go a little slower. I know I could have an intense workout, no problem, but if I'm on a walk, it always used to be rush, and now it's, if I have somewhere to be, I'm going to show up there on time. But if not, I'm going to take the scenic route. So I challenge everyone to take the scenic route when they can, and to show up for themselves and show up for others. And that's it. I mean, everything else is kind of water under the bridge. I look back and I won't forget it, but I continue to move forward. I won't forget you either, or anyone that left those comments. When I made that video, I was like nervous. I was like, am I saying the right thing? And then I was like, to see those comments, and I wish I could respond and call everyone that watches. But I'm with you all in spirit, and I wish everyone the best. So.
Well, chances are way more people are going to watch this one, because obviously my channel has grown in the last few years.
You're like a little bit of a celebrity now, you know.
A celebrity in my micro vestibular universe, yes. in the context of vestibular, yes. So then imagine, since you just started the LLC, you don't have a website yet, but I will update this video description with the website when you have one. So everyone is, I know, going to be clamoring to work with you. So I will make sure that that information is in the description once I have it. In the meantime, if people would like to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's think here. On the prior video, I would try to get to the comments and all that. I think that would be the best right now. And then if, depending on what else picks up, hopefully I could I'll provide an email or whatnot, but we'll see how it goes, but I'll respond to as many people as I can. And if I don't respond, I'm just as grateful. Literally your comments on this last video are a huge reason. Cause even though I was a lot better in all these things, when fear would creep up later, I had those comments and you guys to continue to give me the belief. So I'm here because of you guys. So I'll respond as best I can. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Ben, thank you again. We will definitely keep in touch. So you can expect to hear more from me. But for the rest of you watching, I know that you got a lot out of this. Of course, if you have not seen Ben's original interview, you should definitely check that out. I'll be linking that in the video description. And in the meantime, if you could share, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this as a podcast, please follow the podcast, give us a 5-star rating. These things truly matter. They really help my channel, my podcast grow. And the whole point of that is so we can reach more people with messages of hope and resilience so they can get better. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Ben, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.